ready.
All right, hey everybody. John Jackson here. We've got Joe Seski here. We are here in Propelio. Going to be talking about lease options and how you use them, how you can utilize them, especially if you're starting off, if you're a wholesaler, why they're so great. We're going to be covering the different types of lease options, lease option assignments, how to find sellers, how to find buyers, all kinds of things, and even talking about Texas lease options that I'm specifically known for. So excited to be here to share our vast knowledge with all you thousands and tens of thousands of viewers out there in the internet world. So let's get started here with lease options. You ready, Joe?
I'm ready.
You're right. I do feel like I'm on a cooking
Are you guys
show.
ready? That's the question.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, so lease options. What are they? What are the benefits? And why did I choose lease options as a niche? First, a little bit super quick background on me, then I'll tell my story, how I got started later. But I did start leasing to buy in 2003, doing just solely lease options, and that's essentially all I've done since 2003. I've done some wholesaling, but just prefer lease options. And I think really for people starting off and even wholesalers, it's a great way to get started into to real estate. And of course, that's how you got started in real estate. So what are lease options? Let's start off there with the basics. So it's pretty dang simple. A lease option is simply a lease with a separate option to purchase on that property. That's all it is. It's just a lease with a separate option. So the buyer, the end buyer, the optionee, has the right to buy that property at within a certain amount of time at a certain price. Okay. If you've ever done any trading in the stock market and you've heard of options, basically, it's the same thing where the buyer is paying a specific price, strike price for that house. That buyer has the right to buy that house within a certain amount of time for that price. So it's just a lease with a separate option to purchase. It's also called rent to own. It's also called wholesaling lease option. But we'll get into that, and we'll get into the different types of lease options. But some of the benefits for those of you all just starting off in real estate is the benefits of lease options is no money down. You don't have to go get a loan. It's not required to go get any money at all because you're not financing anything. You're not making payments on anything. You're just going to control that property with a contract, similar to wholesaling where you're controlling that property with a contract. So you don't need any money. You don't have to go worry about your credit. Nobody checks your credit. You're not making payments on the house. And with what we do with lease option assignments, we're working with nice houses in nice areas. As a matter of fact, we may even be able to go look at a house while we're here in the studios. We've got a house coming up in Arlington. That's a nice $370,000 house with a pool. Those are the kind of houses that we work with. So, and we'll talk about the difference between lease options and wholesaling here in just a second.
So you're not going out to estimate repairs or anything like that. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, whereas a wholesaler is going to go out and you got to know how much. I don't have no clue how much a foundation costs.
Right.
I don't even know how they fix a foundation.
Right.
All I know is some guys show up in a truck, they crawl into the house, and they come out, and the house is level.
And I think a lot of maybe a lot of people watching right now are just starting out, getting their feet wet. They don't want to go out and or they definitely don't want to go out and estimate a roof cost or a foundation cost, and they don't know, right? So it's a little bit easier to work with.
Yeah, because with the lease option, you're working with nice houses, move-in ready. You don't have to estimate repairs. There's no repairs needed.
Right.
So that's a great benefit as well. And another benefit really for lease options, especially lease option assignments that we do, is there's almost no competition. People starting off in real estate, they think that the way to start is wholesaling,
right?
Which nothing against wholesaling. It's not my cup of tea, and I don't think it's your cup of tea. But with the way that we do lease options, there's almost no competition out there,
right?
Especially nowhere near the scale that there is with wholesaling. So you're diving into a market of really untapped sellers that no other investors tapping into, because a lot of other investors don't know how to work with these houses that have very little equity,
right,
or where the owner wants full price. Mm-hmm. So we're tapping into that market, which is great for us and great for you starting off with lease options. And so why did I choose lease options as a niche back in 2003? And it was really because as I was looking at different ways to make money in real estate, which I'll talk about in a little bit about my story, and then we'll talk about Joe, how he got started. But when I was getting started in real estate, I saw there were so many different ways to make money in real estate But at the end of the day, you had to know which niche you were going to pick, because if you try to focus on all these different avenues, all these different ways to make money in real estate, you were going to suck at all of them. All right. My background is as a day trader in the stock market, and to be a successful trader in the stock market, you still have to find your niche. You can't try to trade multiple different ways. You've got to find your niche, and so that's why I'm with Lease Options, because it required no money. So I really didn't have that much money at the time. Right. No credit, nice houses, and no competition.
And you hit on a good point, because that's we have students and I'm the coach. I see that a lot, where a lot of students that we bring on are trying to do everything at once. They're wholesalers, they're making cash offers, they're doing lease options. They know a little bit of everything, and you know what happens when that happens, right? So they're not very successful. But if you just stick to one thing and be really good at it, that's where I see a lot of students succeed. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and so Joe works with our students that we teach. He does the one-on-one coaching with them, and so he sees this all the time with the students that we have, where maybe they've been to different seminars and they get all excited about the next shiny object, and what they do is they end up learning like this much of a strategy that's really this deep, and they just know the surface level, and they start kind of playing with that surface level. Then some other strategy pops up on Facebook or online. They get excited about that.
Right.
And by the time you and I, they come to us, they're all over the map. And a lot of times you've got to really work with them, with the students, to get them focused in and say, okay, forget that.
Yeah. No, I do a lot of unteaching as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the unteaching, because I've had to unteach people. You have to unteach people. It's where they've learned to say a little bit about lease options, but it's totally wrong.
Right. And there's other, I won't name names, but there's other educators out there that, on forums or on websites, that's, here's a one-page document. And what you said before, we do lease options, which is a lease used in conjunction with an option to purchase agreement. They're two separate agreements, right? So a lot of times students are confused as to, well, isn't this one agreement? Aren't these two separate agreements? We're not making offers on houses. We're not. It's different than wholesaling, whereas they feel that. They have to go out and make an offer to the seller, because keep in mind, we're not purchasing the home ourselves. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of little things that I have to teach or reteach that I think get glanced over. But I'll hit on those.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be covering a lot of stuff here on lease options throughout this. Throughout the courses, we have several segments we're going to be covering, and we'll get into different, basically almost every topic or every angle that you can think of with lease options here as we go through everything. So a lot of people that come to us for training anyway have started off. Maybe they've done a deal or two, or maybe they've faced a lot of challenges and have hit roadblocks and brick walls along the way. Yeah. And they come to us because they see that the lease, with the way that we do lease options, is really it's simplistic. It's very simplistic, so much so that we have to, as you say, untrain them, because they try to make it so complicated. Right. It's so simple. Yeah. From setting the numbers to, we don't even have to see the houses.
Yeah. Put structure the deal so that it's in a trust, and so many convoluted steps that can be simplified.
Yeah, and so when the people come to us that are just starting off, they face a lot of hurdles. Money, they think they've got to go get private money or use hard money, or somehow inject a lot of money into their real estate business, and they don't. With lease options, you don't need any money. Credit, nobody checks your credit, so you don't have to worry about, well, I don't have good enough credit to do real estate. Doesn't matter. Knowledge, they're always trying to get so much knowledge, but never putting anything to use. And you said something earlier about people that go to, say, online real estate forums. And I always tell people, as you're starting to learn real estate, and we know, the big real estate forum out there, and a couple of them out there, they've got some good content out there, but when it comes to actually learning to build a business, you need to win yourself off the real estate forums, I would say, very, very quickly. Because with real estate forums, what happens is you can post a question that's a legitimate question, and you're going to get everybody pouncing on you from telling you what an idiot you are and you can't do that,
who's never done a lease option.
Who's never even done a lease option, or it's illegal, and all kinds of, or you got to put it, like you said, a trust and blah blah blah. Right. So I always tell people, get off those. You
realtor.
You got to be a realtor.
So many things.
Yeah, you got to have a full head of hair, which is not true. And but so wean yourself off those forums. We always tell our students, hey, welcome to our coaching. Here we go. Now, never go to another forum. All right. You have a question, you come to us. So knowledge, there's a lot of misinformation out there. The other thing that I'll talk about knowledge is knowledge it comes in two forms. Knowledge comes in two forms. One is, oh my gosh, I've got to know that right now. I have to know that right now. The other form of knowledge is, oh, that's interesting. I'll keep that in mind. Because as you're getting information and knowledge, a lot of people get stuck on, was it paralysis of analysis?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what paralysis of analysis is where they think all the knowledge that they can get is, oh my God, I've got to learn that right now.
Right.
I've got to know that right now.
Or I can't do anything until I think I know everything.
Right.
They won't do one thing in the real world or take action until they believe that they have all the pieces of the puzzle assembled, right?
Yeah,
well, I can't make I can't talk to a seller because I don't have my purple business cards yet, I'm serious.
I know. I've had people where like 3 months later, I can't get a hold of them as students, and they finally go, where have you been? I go, I'm so excited. I've almost got my business cards designed. Do you think I should go with a purple stripe or a blue? I'm like, who cares? I don't even use business cards.
Probably.
Blue is, but by the way, blue is the way to go. Because purple.
But no, I mean, you can't be afraid to take action. It's one thing to learn something on a chalkboard. It's another thing to actually implement it in real life.
Yep. And so you've got to know as you're getting information, whether it be from us or whoever your coach is or whoever's teaching you, you got to know what information you're getting and that's coming in is, oh, I need to know that right now. Versus, oh, that's interesting, I'll keep that in mind. When that situation comes up where you need to pull that information off the shelf and use it. Another hurdle that a lot of people face is so much competition. Like I said, a lot of people start off with wholesaling. And it seems like everybody that gets into real estate, they start off as a wholesaler. So what happens then is everybody and their mother is a wholesaler all of a sudden. And so what happens is, perfect example is, if you're going to be sending off mailings, well, typically you're pulling the same, as a wholesaler, typically pulling the same list that everybody else is pulling. You're using basically the same piece of mail, a postcard or a fake yellow letter. And so you're sending these to homeowners that they're getting 1,000 of these a month. And what's going to make you stand out among all these postcards or letters? And so, again, with lease options, there's basically no competition. When we do a mailing to a specific list, it's a specific list, first of all, that no other investor is marketing to. We're also using mail pieces that nobody else is utilizing. So we're the only mail piece that homeowner is getting. And so our success rate our response rate, I should say, on our mail pieces is very high.
It is
very high.
Because nobody else is targeting them. And I mean, I think too, most people just starting out, I mean, if they were like me, didn't have a lot or any money, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the only strategy to make money in real estate without having any of your own? Well, wholesaling, right? That's what everybody thinks. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times it's just a matter of us, doing events, doing educational stuff like this, where people or students don't even know about lease options, right? And that's why there's not much competition, because that's another path to invest in real estate without having any money of your own, and not many people are aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I was talking about when I started off in real estate and why I chose lease options. When I started off in real estate, and this still stands true today, there were so many different ways to make money in real estate. And there still are rentals, wholesaling, like we talked about, fix and flip, Section 8 multifamily, self-storage, raw land, subject to, notes, tax liens, foreclosures. There's so many different ways to make money, and you've got to really dial in on your niche that you're interested in, that fits your mindset, that fits your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. You've got to look at your risk level. Are you a risk taker where you have access to capital and you want to do a fix and flip? Maybe, maybe not. For me, I've never done a fix and flip. I've seen enough horror stories out there. I don't want to do a fix and flip because I just don't have the patience for that. The risk is...
And we speak to a lot of investors that come on board and they've done fix and flips, and they'll tell us, yeah, I made a lot of money on this one deal, but here's one or two more deals where I lost a lot of money
where
too,
they lost everything
right?
they made, yeah.
So one of the nice things about lease options is no investment capital up front, very, very little, maybe on marketing. And you don't have to take that risk with the fix and flip. And with us, there's no there's no risk, right? Mm-hmm. There's none at all. There's no downside. So that's one thing that I was really attracted to first starting out about lease options is there's no risk.
Right. No risk and no money involved.
Right.
And so when I got started, each avenue of research had pros and cons, and I had to weigh the risk and reward of each different avenue, each avenue in real estate. A friend of mine at the time, this goes, again, almost 17 years back, had a rental property, and he was really proud about his rental property. But when I was asking him about it, he was only making like $150 a month at the time. But that didn't include if a repair was needed, right? Mm. That was like in a good month, if nothing went wrong, everything worked perfectly, the rent was paid on time, nothing broke, nothing happened, he made $150. And I was like, that just doesn't sound appealing to me. And again, I'm not anti any strategy, but again, you've got to see what's a fit for you. And I realized at that time, wow, that's not a strategy I want.
Oh yeah, and even the situations where, and don't get me wrong, you could definitely make serious money doing fix and flips for sure. But I talk to a lot of people where they say, yeah, I've done a fix and flip, I made a profit, but really, if I break it down per month, and the time I spent on this and the stress, I might as well have just worked a 9-to-5 job when it's all said and done, and the dust settles. So, I mean, there's some people that really love it, and there's definitely a big upside to it. But for those, especially just starting out with not a lot of money, don't want the risk, lease options, I believe is the best avenue to go.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And so now, before we dive into lease options, one of the things I want to cover first and make very clear is that lease options are not wholesaling. I'm going to show you just very briefly the difference on wholesale deal, what a wholesale deal looks like, and what a lease option deal looks like. I'll show you a couple of deals that one of the wholesale deals that I did, one of the houses that I did, and versus a lease option deal, so you can kind of see the difference here. Because it seems like sometimes there's confusion about wholesaling and lease options because the phrase wholesaling lease options has become more and more prevalent, and it's a huge difference. So again, with a wholesale deal, and this is pretty much the math that you're going to be using for a wholesale deal, you're going to be looking at about 70% after repair value, minus the repairs, obviously, whatever the repairs are needed, minus whatever fee it is that you're going to make on that property, and that's your offer to the seller, which ends up being about typically maybe 50 cents on the dollar is what you're offering, and that's what every other wholesaler is offering. And that's why you're competing with that. So first of all, the seller had to pick your postcard out of whatever, 100 of them, call you, you go out, you make this offer, and they've also called 10 other wholesalers, and they're all making the same offer, or maybe they're saying, well, what's your best offer? And they try to up and up and up, and that's where this competition comes out. That's not what we do with lease options. Now, I put LTB. LTB is leasing to buy. That's our company where we do the lease options. So the leasing to buy math is totally different. On leasing to buy math, we typically, and I say offer, we're typically writing the contract up for about 2 to 2.5% above what the seller's asking in most cases. Right. So so what we're doing is we're targeting sellers that no other investors are targeting. We're using mail pieces to these sellers, which we'll talk about. We're using mail pieces to these sellers that nobody else is using. And then what we put on the contract is about 2 to 2.5% above what they're already asking. So it's really a no-brainer for the seller.
Yeah, and what that means is that as opposed to doing a wholesale deal where you're trying to offer as little as possible to the seller, and kick the tires, we become, teammates almost, where we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And now we're working to get the seller as much as we can for them instead of lowballing them and creating, that friction and that adversarial relationship. They love us because we're trying to get them as much money as we can when we're setting those numbers,
Yeah, and that's why, and as we get into how we set the numbers and how this starts coming together throughout the different segments that we do, you're going to see that this is really for most sellers, it's kind of a no-brainer for most sellers, and that's why it's not difficult to talk to sellers, which we'll talk about, talking to sellers later in seller scripts, but it's so easy. We're just saying, how would you like full price, no commission? We're like, yeah, bring it on.
Right, yeah.
So, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, going back to wholesaling versus lease options, I'm going to show you real quickly the difference between an actual wholesale deal I did versus a lease option house. So here is on the screen, here's the wholesale house I did in Fort Worth. This is actually one I did a number of years ago. And you can see this is a pile of crap. It's a pile of dog crap. Again, with this house, I had to go look at the house. I had to go inside. It was a hoarder house. It was absolutely disgusting. It smelled like cat urine. And it was just disgusting. This is a wholesale house. So here's a lease option house. This is one I did down in Mansfield a couple years ago. And so obviously you can see the difference there. Did you see the difference?
Can you go back?
Yeah, let me go back, because I know some of the viewers are a little slow.
I see the chair right there under that roof that fell down, yeah.
I always laugh when I see that chair, because I think of like a guy playing a banjo.
Yeah.
And then the roof caves in. I don't know why I picture a banjo when I see that chair. I don't know.
I can see it.
I can see the banjo. So there's a wholesale house. Here's the lease option house. No chair, no banjo. So we do banjo-free houses. Is what we
Unfortunately,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Do you play the banjo?
You
play the violin?
I did. I'm retired.
He plays the violin.
I dabbled in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes. Not me. So here's another wholesale house I did in Tarrant County, and you can see on the left, you can see all the mold and just the nastiness and it's just disgusting, and obviously your wholesale fees are going to vary. But because there's so much competition, when there's more and more competition piling on, your fees, your profit are going to shrink because there's so much competition. Here's a house we did down in Kyle, Texas, and your average fees on lease options are going to be about $8,500 to $15,000, and you can even grow a goatee and sit on the beach with lease options. See, you can't do that with wholesaling. You can't sit on the beach and grow a goatee.
Yeah. So although you can do lease options on the beach, I choose to, be on vacation when I'm on vacation.
I like to work when I'm on vacation. I like to create literary genius when I'm on vacation.
Right.
Books and manuals and poetry. A lot of poetry.
Yeah. You'll have to share with me some of your works.
I've got some amazing poetry.
Love to hear it.
All right. On the next segment. But another great thing about the lease options is with a wholesale house, normally someone's got to see the house, or you've got to take the owner's word for it. Like you hear about virtual wholesalers, which we work with some of the big virtual wholesalers in the nation. They've got to take the word of the owner of what's wrong with the house, and they've got to hope that what the owner's telling them is the truth. With the lease options, I've done almost 700 lease option deals myself. I never saw most of the houses. I never met the seller in a lot of cases. Matter of fact, the only reason the house in Arlington that we may go see today is because we're here in Arlington, and we got you and I and possibly the camera crew here to go look at it, and just to get more pictures of it. I don't have to go see the house. I don't have to go meet the seller or anything. So you can do this virtually. It's very easy to do virtually. You don't have to meet anybody and see the house or even meet the buyers. I didn't meet a lot of the buyers. I never even talked to them. So with wholesaling versus lease options, it's called P money versus pool money. Now, P money is I think it's an actual real estate term.
Yeah, yeah,
P money.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. P money versus pool money. I'm laughing.
And there are people that love P money,
Yeah,
the smell of it.
wholesalers.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're painting a picture here where wholesaling's bad, but I mean, a lot of there's some people that would love to walk into that house and I smell dollar bills.
Right.
Right. For us, that's just not our style. I'd rather, and that home there. That's a real home that you did. That's not even, it's a beautiful house. It's not an exaggeration.
No, the one of the pool. No, that's up in Keller.
Right.
I still remember the street name. So the one on the left was a wholesale deal I did. The one on the left, I'm sorry, the other side, opposite of left, whatever that is the pool money.
And at least in that property, you can see the mold.
Yeah.
What if you're a couple, into construction and you found it later on, so there's always that risk of, hidden expenses. This could happen. You're involved in it for possibly months at a time, right? Our transactions, are relatively quick. Although we do 12-month lease, terms, it's very hands off. So it's just much more hands off, and more of my speed. For sure.
Yeah, and because we like to wear white shirts, we don't want to go into a pee-ridden house.
Yeah.
We just don't want to smell like pee, is all. So again, if you're a wholesaler, this is why lease options are really great for if you're a wholesaler. At the end of the day, about 70 to 80% of the leads that you bring in as a wholesaler, keep in mind you're spending thousands of dollars a month on marketing for direct mail or online ads, whatever. Over 70 to 80% of the leads that you bring in are not wholesale deals. They don't fit that formula that we talked about. 70% ARV, minus repairs, minus your cost.
And they want to sell their house.
Yeah.
But a lot of times for full retail. Well, how can we get the seller full retail?
Right, with a lease option. So again, so most of the leads you get as a wholesaler, most of the leads do not have enough equity for you to wholesale it. And so what happens is you throw that lead away and it becomes trash. Well, Joe and I work with some big wholesalers, and we turn the trash into
cash. Wow.
Into cash. I just made that up. P money and trash into cash. I like it. So again, lease options allow you to convert almost all of your leads. Really, the only leads that we can't work with is if, as an example, the owner absolutely has to be cashed out. For whatever reason, they've got to get that cash immediately. Then it may not be a lease option deal, but outside of that, that's pretty much the only lead that we can't.
That's the only downside I can really think of for our program is it takes up to 12 months for the seller to go to closing. But if you can wait, and you have the luxury to wait, you will get full market price.
Yep.
You will not pay a commission. There is no negotiation. And the seller's receiving, cash flow, lease payments each month. That's either being paid back into the equity or into their pocket. So, if the sellers are, have that luxury of waiting, it's the best deal in town for sure.
Yeah, because they're going to cash flow. They're not responsible for repairs. Really, the buyer is, and so it's very hands off for the seller. So I'll talk a little bit about my story, how I got started and everything, and then we'll talk about Joe's incredibly boring story. I hope you can add some spice to your story to make it exciting.
I'll try.
Okay. Put in the part about where you were trying out for the Olympics. Mm-hmm. That when you did that was a good part of your story.
Yeah.
Okay. So my story. So I worked for Radio Shack way back in the day. I wasn't selling batteries. I wasn't.
Like little race cars?
Yeah, I was selling little remote control cars. But I worked for, I repaired camcorders actually for years. And I worked for Radio Shack and I hated my job. I hated the drive to work. I hated the people I worked with. I hated the building. I hated what I did. And my typical day was making a drive I hated, going to a building I hated, working with people I hated, going to lunch with people I hated, to talk about the job that we hated, then to ride back in the car with the people I hated, back to the work I hated, to the building I hated, doing the job I hated, then to leave the job I hated. And that was my typical day. And I did that for a number of years. And I hated it. And so
it's horrible, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds horrible. Anyway, so I was actually I was working for Radio Shack. I hated my job. And my wife one day told me that she was pregnant. And my wife at the time, obviously I'm not married now, but my wife at the time told me she was pregnant. So, of course, my first question was, why did you pee on a stick? That seems odd. But having said that, I did the most responsible thing I thought I could do as a father, or a soon-to-be father. I quit my job. Well, I mean, if she's going to go through all that labor and everything,
Right.
I might as well contribute something
Right, I see.
and quit my job.
Right.
So
That
I
was-
did.
yeah.
I said,
Really,
back
yeah.
to the rice fields with you, and I'll stay at home. So I quit my job, and I became a self-taught day trader, where I was trading stocks, and ended up trading options, and wanted to get into real estate. And if I can get the slide here. So I stayed at home dad, taking care of my little girl, and began day trading, and I wanted to get into real estate. As I wanted to make that transition into real estate, I saw so many similarities with the stock market and with real estate. First of all, you've got to find, as we talked about, the niche, your strategy that you're going to be utilizing. And all markets are cyclical. That's very important. As we're recording this right now, the market's pulling back. It's been softening up for at least a year, but it's important to know that all markets are cyclical. It doesn't matter what market it is, and you got to find your niche. And so that's why I started looking at all the avenues. Should I go get a loan and buy a rental? I don't know. So I can make
What made you, from repairing camcorders at Radio Shack, where was the jump where you said, I'm going to just pivot to day trading, and then to real, like, why not?
Yeah.
Why that?
No, that's
Because clearly you were, that seemed to be a little bit above your.
pay grade, knowledge capacity,
Right.
my ability to absorb knowledge.
No,
That's what you're saying.
that's what I'm inferring. There's a difference.
That's well, if you're inferring it, you're saying it
Well,
with your words.
not quite, but no, go ahead.
Okay.
I think everybody wants to learn here.
So the way I got started from fixing camcorders into the stock market is every day we go to the crap hole that we worked, that we like to call, I'm inferring it as a crap hole
Yeah.
of Radio Shack. And
I can't fix a camcorder.
well, so it's above your intelligence ability. But every day we go into Radio Shack and we check the stock of Radio Shack. You know,
okay.
how many, did we sell a lot of batteries yesterday or whatever? I don't know. And we check the stock. But there's a
The
couple.
employees did?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because we got stock. We got part of our money was in stock.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's nice.
And so, but a couple people would go to the computer to check the stock, and I saw them looking at other stocks. And I was like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I started getting intrigued with them. They would teach me a little bit about what they were doing, trading up, whether it was a penny stock or whatever, and I became intrigued by it. I'm like, well, that's interesting. What are you doing? And I started learning more and more about it. And then I started, taking it on my own to learn more about, because I knew I hated Radio Shack.
Right.
So I started learning more about the stock market. And then what really, there was a online, we talked about online forums. There's an online forum that did a lot of training that I started learning from. I bought a book on options and started learning.
I didn't know typewriters had the internet back then.
It's an IBM. Shut up, Trey. Don't edit that. Don't edit. By the way, all my comments, do not edit out. All of his, just put them on the floor. Slice them on the floor.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how I got started in the stock market. I started learning more and more about it, and then I day traded for about 2 years, and towards the end, wanted to get into real estate. And I don't know what really drove me into interest in real estate, other than I was already investing, and I thought, well, I just started getting into real estate, and then I started looking into real estate. Now, here's something that got me into real estate. The book that got me into real estate was, write this down, kids, 1 Minute Millionaire. Write that down, Max. By the way, guys, if you see me point over to Max, we've got Max is here.
Got a large audience.
We have a huge
Yeah.
audience, studio audience here. This is almost like when I did the Tonight Show. There was this huge line out the door, just like you saw here. And now we've got Max as our audience. Say hi, Max.
Hello.
All right, I don't know if you could hear it through the mic, but that was Max, the one guy over there. So throughout the course of this training, I'll be pointing at Max, and then I'll ask Max for input. Anyway, so 1 Minute Millionaire. Write that down, Max. All right.
It is a good book, really.
Yeah, it's a great book. 1 Minute Millionaire is by Robert Allen and my mind just went totally blank. Mark Victor Hansen. It's a great book because it's 2 books in one. It's a fiction story about, I believe, a single mother and how she was trying to make money and struggling and got into real estate, and how she started doing real estate. And the story is really interesting. And then, but on the other part of the book is it talks about business. It talks about mindset. It talks about then real estate. It's a great book to read, 1 Minute Millionaire. But that's how I started getting started in real estate. So looking at lease options, I found, so every now and then I'd see a little blurb about lease options. There wasn't much out there about lease options at the time. But what was out there was really bad information. It was essentially how to get someone into a house, get their money down, they're never going to buy it, then in a year, whatever, you kick them out and you get somebody else in that has money down. And I didn't like that. I thought, I like the idea of lease options, but we've got to structure it properly. I went to about a $97 manual at naked-investor.com. And shut up, Max. Max is over there laughing at me about Naked Investor. Max wants to know what exactly was I researching when I found Naked Investor. You want to know, don't you, Max? Pervert. We got to get a better audience, dude. This audience sucks. Anyway, so I found nakedinvestor.com, and it's an entire site and forum about lease options. That's all it's about. And Michael Carbonari is the guy that operates it. He's down in Florida. A great, great guy. He's actually spoken at one of the trainings I did in Atlanta. He came out and spoke. But his manual was, at the time, it was very, very basic. That's why you call it Naked Investor. But so it taught me just the very basics of lease options. And from there, it's a matter of, well, I've got to, as you say, take action. I know a little bit, and I know enough to be dangerous. And so it's like, well, I can't learn more. I can't find more. I'm going to go out and do this. So, and I'll show you a couple of pictures of the houses that I did at first. So this is how I started doing lease options. Now, so I knew the basics barely, but I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything at all at marketing. And I think at the time, this is so long ago, I don't even know if Craigslist was around. I honestly don't. And I think the only way known to market or to find sellers is literally to get a newspaper.
Right. Oh, so the printing press was out at the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Max. A newspaper was something that would come out every day. They would print it and it would have news articles in it, and it would also have classifieds. And for you, they had comics as well. Some of them were in color on Sunday. Wow. But that was really the only way to find sellers, was to go to like newspaper ads. Mm-hmm. And so I had to find different ways to start marketing. And one of the ways I did, I'll show you this house. I'll talk about this one in a second. One of the ways I started marketing, and I tell the story in the 3-day event, was during the day I was day trading. And I would go to, there was a site that's still out there, there's really nothing on it now, but it's buyowner.com. BUYowner.com. And that's where people would sell their houses by owner, no agent. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll talk to them. So I would print off all these ads for these houses that were by owner. And then at night, I was still doing a little bit at the time, before I'd made the full transition into real estate, I was still doing some part-time for Radio Shack at night. They finally said, hey, we'll give you a key to the building. We got to have you, we can't find anybody to replace you. Because I was so highly intelligent. I was the Mensa of camcorder repairmen. Yes. So I would go in at night when all the people I hated were gone.
Is Mensa an acronym, or is that the name of the institution?
Mensa is the name of an institution. I use it as an adjective sometimes to describe my brilliance.
Interesting.
I am Mensa.
Okay.
I could use it as a noun too. I'm the lease option Mensa.
You wouldn't use the word narcissistic then?
No, you know why? Because it's got too many consonants.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as Mensa.
Mensa is far better than narcissistic.
Nice, cool.
Besides, narcissistic makes it sound like you killed somebody.
Oh,
Isn't that what that means? If you're a narcissist,
you don't know what it means. Come on.
People have served time for being a narcissist. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think go ahead.
So I'd print off these ads, and I would go to Radio Shack at night, and rather than fix camcorders, I would use their phone to call the sellers.
Rotary or? analog at least?
And I would call him, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I would, call him, and I go, hey. I always use a high voice.
Yeah. To the operator or to the person you were calling?
Yeah, this is he's making reference to how long ago this was. Max is learning so much. And I would call him and go, hey, would you want to, I saw your house. Would you want to lease purchase it? And they would always, cuss me out and, oh, F you, I'm eating dinner and whatever. Can I say F you, by the way? Or is that narcissistic? No, that's not narcissistic. They would say, screw you. And but every now and then, of course, I'd get the one that would go, yeah, how does that work? And I'd go, I don't know. And I'd hang up. I would literally hang up on sellers that showed any interest because I was so scared. And what's funny, and I tell this story at our 3-day event, is
some things never change, right?
Yeah. I'm so good at what I do now that if they say yes, I'm like, yeah, psych, boom. You don't get to work with the narcissistic Mensa dude of Lease Options, click. Anyway, so then I started, I didn't know there's a term for this, driving for dollars. And so this house that you see on the screen here was the first house I ever lease optioned. It's in North Richmond Hills. It was probably, I don't know, half a mile from my house. And all I did is I went down a couple of roads I'd never been down before, and boom, here's this house with a for sale by owner sign. I called the owner. I could tell the house was vacant. I called the owner, hey, would you want to lease purchase this? And he said, yeah, sure. I was like, oh crap, okay. So I had a $65 sign I had made, the ugliest freaking sign you've ever seen. And so I went and put it in the yard, and within just a few weeks had lease optioned this one for $3,500, which I would never do anything for that little amount of money now. Anyway, so $3,500, I made it in just a few weeks. And that was back in 2003. And so then within about 90 days of that, I was doing real estate full time, had stopped going to Radio Shack, stopped calling sellers from Radio Shack, which, I talked about this in the 3-day. So I would call people from Radio Shack to see if they'd want to sell their house or do a lease purchase. And, because at the time, this is so long ago, that we still had long distance. You had to dial like 1, 214, whatever. We had a long distance, so I was using Radio Shack's dime. Okay, but what I didn't think about at the time that I realize now is we had long distance, but what we did have was caller ID. I didn't think about that, Max. So here's all these people getting phone calls at 7 o'clock at night from Radio Shack. And they're like, honey, do you order that remote control car for Junior? They pick up the phone. Hello.
Yeah.
I go, hey, you want to at least purchase your house? Yeah.
It's like Radio Shack's not doing too well. We're gonna pivot to real estate acquisitions.
Our stock sucks. You want to at least purchase your house?
You got an adapter for that, right?
You ever got an adapter for that? Oh my gosh. Anyway, so this is the first house I did, and then this is the second house I did. This was about 8 blocks over from the first house. This house had a sign in the yard from Homevestors, from one of the Homevestor franchisees, and called them, hey, do you want to do a lease purchase on this? He said, yeah, sure. Ended up doing this house, and then we started doing more houses for that particular franchise. And then they started telling other franchises about us, and I started doing a bunch of stuff for Homevestors. So there's a little secret for you. Homevestors is a great resource of houses.
For any investor.
Yeah, exactly, because they're getting that inventory, they're turning it, and they've got to move that inventory. So lease options is a great way to do it. So let's talk real quickly about Joe Seski, his story and how he got started. And I'll kind of tee you up here for just a second. So Joe and I work together with the real estate side as well as the education side. Joe is the coach that does all the one-on-one and everything with the students, helps set up a lot of their systems and all that. At our 3-day events that we do live, he's also on stage teaching a lot of the 3-day event. And I remember that years ago when Joe came to me, it must have been 10 years ago, 11?
Yeah.
10 or 11 years ago, Joe had found me through, I don't know how you even found me. And at the time, all I had was some real cheesy ass binder. I mean, it was like the basics of lease options, and he bought it, but with just that manual, took it, ended up in, he lived in Pennsylvania at the time.
Scranton, for all the Office fans out there.
Scranton. Yes.
Yes.
And he bought the manual, and I still joke about, when Joe first had contacted me, I didn't know where Pennsylvania was, to be honest. I still don't exactly know where Pennsylvania is, but I didn't know they had houses in Pennsylvania. I thought everybody just drove around in buggies with no electricity, and like the big ugly hats and like women just made their own clothes and crap and ugly as hell. I don't know if that's true now or not, but. The point is, Joe did over 200 houses using that crappy-ass manual that I had at the time, 10 or 11 years ago. So, anyway, but you were a college student getting your biology degree. So let's talk about that. So, let's hear your story.
Yeah. Well, like you said, that's pretty much my story, and I'm sure nobody wants to hear our stories. They want to learn about lease options, but.
Well, let's ask Max. Max, do you want to hear his freaking story?
Of course I do. Of course.
Okay, he's showing you the love. Take it away.
So about 10 years ago, I was still in college. I'm 30 now, and I was 19 at the time, and I was going for my biology degree, and I didn't have a passion for science really in general. I just took it because I figured, why not? And while I was studying to get my degree, obviously everybody looks at, well, what kind of job are you going to get with this, right? Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be, a biologist? Are you going to study dolphins down in Florida? And I was like, I don't want to do any of that. And
look at Max; he's on the edge of his seat.
I know, it's very interesting stuff. Maybe it resonates. I know. I mean, this resonates with a lot of people for some reason. But no, I was going to college, and I was like, what am I doing? I mean, I have all this money invested into getting my degree for a job that might pay, I don't know, let's say $50,000-$60,000 a year. What kind of, I'm thinking, what kind of lifestyle is that? And that works for, a lot of people. But I definitely wanted more, and I was thinking, for me at the time, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I wanted to make money. That's what it was. I didn't have a passion for real estate at the time. Now I certainly do. But I really like the idea of being an entrepreneur. I really like the idea of having freedom, financial freedom especially, but also the freedom to do what I want and when I want. And I'm, don't get me wrong, I'm not on the beach 24/7 doing deals, but if my friend calls me up and says, hey, Joe, why don't come to New York City this weekend, I can say yes and not, well, I got to, I have work. Let me see if I get time off. So I really like the idea in real estate. At the time, I didn't know what I was going to do in real estate, but I knew that there were ways that at least people were talking about, oh, I made money in real estate without using any money of my own, which I didn't have a lot of. We weren't rich growing up. So I was like, well, that's it then. I'm going to go that route. Because I'm going to make it work. And then I started researching, how to make money in real estate, blah, blah, blah. I stumbled upon wholesaling, and then I stumbled upon you, I forget where. And I was reading your material, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. And you had a phone number at the time, and I called it, and and you answered. I'm like, whoa, this is strange. I'm like, hi, I have a question about lease options. And you answer them. Yeah. And then after that, I was like, well, this is it. This guy knows his stuff. I want to get involved with that. And ever since, for the past 10 years, I've primarily just done lease option deals in real estate.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And so you were a college student, getting a biology degree, got started in real estate. Let's talk a little bit about, do you remember the first deal that you did?
Yeah, I think everybody always remembers the first deal.
So walk us through that.
First deal, real quick, I found, I was on Craigslist because that was the only free source I had at the time. Sent the seller an email, hey, I saw your house, would you consider selling it through a lease purchase, right? And the seller said yes, and I was terrified. I was like, what do I do? And after that, at the time, we weren't doing deals virtually back then. You didn't have, the internet wasn't that evolved even back then where, I'll just pull the pictures offline or whatever, right?
Right.
So I went out to see the house, and it was a nice house, and I'm pulling up, I did not have a nice car, right? it was bad. It was, rusting out. I borrowed nice clothes from my dad, and I'm going to the house, knocking on the door. I'm terrified, right? I'm 19 years old, and I really have no idea what I'm doing, right? But I said, whatever, let's just try it, right? The worst thing that can happen is they'll say no. So the seller, turned out to be a really nice guy. We hit it off. We got talking, mostly about other stuff, not even real estate. And, once I left that house, I started marketing it, on Craigslist.
Mm-hmm.
I took an ad out in the newspaper, actually, believe it or not.
Okay, yeah, I did. Yep.
And I found a buyer from Craigslist, and showed them the house. They wanted it. There's some other steps involved. And that following month, on the first, they moved in, and I got paid, and I had $7,000, in a cashier's check to my name at 19. I was like, you've got to be.
Air 5. Boom.
I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this actually works, and I'm here toiling away, and, learning which, thank God there's people like that love to, work in a lab and do stuff like that. I have friends that do that, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, here I am, like, wow, like for that much work that I put into it, for everything that's going on, $7,000 was not a bad payday, and ever since I've been doing, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And
well, I think it's great. You dig into to more of your story, which we won't get into, but there's even more to the story than that I think is phenomenal, and I'm just I'm actually very glad, very happy that we connected, that you found me, that you found Lease Options, that you took action, because some people don't take action, and especially now with, good God, everything is like in step 1, 2, 3 videos.
Right.
It's silly not to do some sort of action here.
And a lot of people believe that, especially students I talk to and people who we come across, they always believe that you're something different than they are, right? They're normal people.
Yeah.
You're the guru. You have something up your sleeve or in your back pocket that you whip out that they don't have access to, and that's why they fail, right? What I'm saying is, I was able to duplicate exactly, not exactly, I had to reinvent some stuff, but I was able to take your information and actually apply it and make it work. Yeah. They may not believe me now, but it works. So I don't know.
Yeah, and there's no magic. Yesterday I had a call with a seller, and it came from a very, very large investor who's done countless deals, and he started sending us. This would be like he started sending us a few leads, and obviously I've got to go through them and call them to see is it a fit, whatever. And we got one, I think, under contract already, and we're getting another one. Sending the numbers today on another one. But here's an investor that's got a crud load of experience, and sending me these leads to do lease options with, these leads he would normally throw away. Max, pay attention to me, damn it. And don't edit that, Trey. I've got to keep the audience alive.
When are you going to start?
Anyway, but this investor with years of experience, he was so excited. He said, Can I be a fly on the wall on the conversation with this seller?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, you know how it is with the seller. It's like a 3-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm John, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Here's what we do. What's your email address?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send you a couple emails. And I got the phone this investor was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I'd have recorded that. How did you do that?" I'm like, I just got someone's email address and told him what I did. It's not difficult, but people want to make it difficult.
Yeah. No, as I started, growing my business, I came across investors that did the fix and flips and purposely would put their finished home into our program. Because they're getting full price. They're not paying any commissions or negotiations, and they're getting that cash flow for up to 12 months. And some of them wanted to structure it for longer than that, so they could get cash flow longer before they were cashed out. So I've had investors that on a continuous basis would give me inventory, beautiful homes. just because they could max out their profit through us.
I would do the same thing with builders, small home builders. I'm going to say small, I mean like a D.R. Horton, but a smaller, they did a lower number per year. Home builders, investors, a lot of home investor houses, a lot of wholesalers. So we work with a lot of other investors. So again, another avenue for resource for houses for you is other investors that may be doing the fix and flip. So cool. Well, great. Well, listen. So we're gonna cut away here. We're gonna go to the next section. The next section we're gonna be talking about is multi-level marketing and vitamins and healthcare. Max has really been wanting to know about multi-level marketing. And Max, you have 3 friends, right? You know 3 people. Yeah, and they know 3 people probably, right? There you go. You could be at the top of the. We don't call it a pyramid so much as a triangle. We call it the triangle. But no, we're going to talk next. We're going to talk about the 3 types of lease options and where you use each one. So, Joe, what do you say we cut it off here and move on to the next section?
We'll see you in the next video.
All right, bam.